What should you focus on more? Learning NLP techniques and processes, or focusing on cultivating NLP skills? Stay tuned. Hey, this is Damon from NLP Gym. Neuro-linguistic programming is the technology of creating the life that you desire. And for the past several years, I've been learning and mastering NLP in order to create the life that I desire, and now to help you create the life that you desire. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Without skill, NLP techniques and processes will work sometimes. At their worst, they won't work at all. At their best, it'll be haphazard. So I often tell my students to really focus on cultivating NLP skills. Now, what skills am I talking about? I'll get to that in a moment. I was just recently in New Orleans. I went home to visit, that's where I'm from. And I also had just taken up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a few months ago. And I didn't want to not practice for an entire week while I was vacationing and visiting with family and friends. So I found two different locations. My parents live outside of New Orleans, and then there was actually in New Orleans proper. So I went to two different places, and it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so it's the same art that I practice. And a lot of the things were the same, basically how we warm up, and they teach a technique, then we practice it on each other, and then we do some sparring. One thing I noticed in both of the classes that I went to was they emphasized more learning technique. I found this very interesting because in the class that I take here in California, I felt like the instructor didn't focus enough on teaching us new techniques. I felt like I only know a few techniques, and he keeps sort of reteaching the same techniques over and over. He even went as far to say that when he's competing, which he's a top competitor, a world competitor, that he only uses about 3 techniques. And I thought to myself, well, what's the point in having all these techniques if you're only using like 3? So when I was taking these classes in Louisiana, I was very happy because I was learning all these new techniques, but I noticed something very interesting, that I'm just a white belt, and I was very strong against the students in this class, in both these classes. I went up against some of the higher belts, and I don't want to say I beat everybody because that wouldn't be true, but I performed quite well. In fact, at the second class that I went to, I think I performed so well that the instructor, who was a black belt, wanted to spar with me and kind of whip up on me a little bit just to show me that they're a serious class and they have serious students, and I had no doubt about that, but he kind of whipped up on me a little bit. He didn't hurt me anyway, it wasn't anything bad, but he kind of put it on. My learning from that was that the skill is more important than the technique, because without the skill, if you can't control the fight, then you can't set up the techniques. You can't even make the techniques work, because the techniques that we were being taught in these classes, none of these guys who were in these classes were able to pull any of those techniques on me. They just reverted back to your very standard chokes and arm bars and those sort of techniques. They didn't do any of the fancy stuff, really, because they couldn't control me that way. I controlled most of the sparring sessions that I did. It started to make sense to me because in the class that I take here in California, we do a lot of sparring, which means we get better conditioning, and we get that practice of cultivating the skill of body movement and how to move our weight and how to manipulate the other person's body weight against them. It made me realize that all the times that I've resource coached for NLP trainings and the times that I've taught NLP trainings, what I hear most from students is they want to learn more techniques, they want to learn more processes, and I keep telling them the same thing. It doesn't matter if you learn more techniques and more processes. If you don't have the skill, there's nothing so magical about the techniques and processes. They won't work most of the time if you're not able to gain rapport with someone. And if you don't have the sensory acuity and calibration skills, you won't know when something is working and when it's not working. So those skills that I was talking about are basically, you need to know how to get in rapport with someone. You also need to know how to be in congruence with yourself if you're using NLP on yourself. So what creates rapport? Well, it's those matching and mirroring, matching someone's breathing, calibration skills. and the sensory acuity that goes with that. So you develop that sensory acuity. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, just go to my website, nlp-gym.com. I have some free training on sensory acuity and calibration. You can download it right from the website and start using it immediately. So when you cultivate that skill of sensory acuity and calibration, you're able to get in rapport with people very quickly. So you can't, if you're a coach, you're not going to be able to help people change if you're not in rapport with them. If you want to persuade or influence someone, if it's like a sales situation, it's not going to happen unless you can develop rapport and stay in rapport with that person the entire time that you're moving them through whatever process it is that you're moving them through. If you're using NLP on yourself, if you can't tell if you're congruent about something, if you're not able to recognize resistance coming up in yourself and you just push yourself through a process or some technique that you're using, the change isn't going to last. You're going to revert back because you haven't dealt with that resistance. So you need congruence with yourself if you want to be effective at using NLP on yourself for lasting change. And if you want to help someone else make changes or you want to influence someone, you have to be able to recognize what's going on with them. You have to be able to get in rapport, and you have to be able to calibrate their states so that you know that they're in a state of rapport, first of all, and that if you're doing the change work, you need to see something happening in them physically that lets you know that it's working. And then sometimes things will come up, objections will come up, and if you ask the person, you say, are there any objections to this change or what we're doing here? They may verbally say no, but their body says something else, and you need to be able to pick up on that. So again, if you don't have the skills, sometimes NLP processes will still work, even if you don't have the skills. But it's going to be haphazard. It's most likely not going to work. And this is the complaint that I hear people say all the time, oh, NLP doesn't work. Well, if you just pull out a process and try it once, chances are it's not going to. That's like saying, I can teach you one jiu-jitsu technique and then you're going to go beat everybody that you wrestle with. It's not going to happen. You need to cultivate the skills. And when you cultivate the skills, you can make almost anything work. I've created processes and techniques on the spot. But because I had the skills to do it, I had the skills to make it work, I could make it work. And that's not to diminish the processes. Processes and techniques are important. The processes and techniques are what they are because out of necessity to change or out of mapping how our personality works and how change works. That's where these techniques and processes come from. It's sort of like a map to guide you through the way to get to where you want to go. But if you don't have the vehicle, if you don't have the fuel, it's not going to happen. What my recommendation would be here is just focus on 3 main techniques or 3 main processes. Anchoring is a great one. Mapping across is another great one. And then, like I said, the sensory acuity and calibration skills. Those are techniques and their skills. So when you're practicing like matching and mirroring, you're also cultivating sensory acuity, you're cultivating calibration skills. So those are great to practice as a technique and process while you cultivate the skill. So if you really master 3 techniques or 3 NLP processes, you're going to be so much more effective than if you know 20, if you've memorized 20 processes. Bruce Lee used to say, I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So take just 3 processes or techniques, really practice them daily on yourself and with other people, and stick to those until you really master them. And you're going to cultivate that skill along the way, and then only then start moving on to learning more and more techniques and processes. I promise you this is a much better way to go about it, and you will find much, much better results if you do it this way than if you just try to memorize a bunch of NLP processes. Check out my website, nlp-gym.com. There you will find some free NLP training that you can download right away and get started immediately. Also, I have some free hypnotic inductions. Again, you can just download those straight from their website, and you can download it to your phone, to your iPad, to your computer, and start listening to them right away. Just let my voice take you to greater and greater self-esteem and confidence. Follow me on Facebook if you want to know what I'm up to, whatever it is I'm up to. I always post it on Facebook, so if that's a new online training that I'm releasing, a talk that I'm giving, or if I'm going live, you'll know it by following me on Facebook. If you like this video, please click like right down here. And like I mentioned, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so right now by clicking the subscribe button and hit the bell so you'll be notified when new videos are coming out. Take care.